Hi everyone, welcome to an overview video for your chapter 3, your theory of improvement. So I'll kind of offer some of these ideas now or some of these notes, but you will get additional information like throughout other courses. But one to help orient you, you wrote chapter 2, contextualizing the problem practice back in EDD 808. And great, you did a lot of work there. You dove into the different environments of your different perspectives of taking a look at your problem of practice, and you were for the first time writing the significant chunk, the significant portion of your dissertation and practice, your DIP. Here in this course, we are going to work on writing chapter 3, your theory of improvement, and you will find that a lot of these ideas, all of these ideas, are building off of your experience in EDD 810, where you went through a number of these things. You wrote up your theory of improvement. I think you called it a comprehensive action plan. I can't remember the exact name of it. But you looked at a driver diagram. You talked about what measures you would use, and you kind of even drafted up a PDSA cycle. You talked about stakeholder engagement. You talked about positionality. So we're just revisiting those ideas here, and you have the opportunity to refine them. So one, great. Nothing is new. You have read about and thought about and even wrote about all of these ideas before. But now that you know your bounded time frame of your dissertation study, you might need to make some additional changes or revisions or refinements and polishing off those ideas. So that's what we're mostly focusing on. So here in writing chapter 3, we're going to break this up into really 3 main chunks. Chapter 3 is not a super extensive chapter, but it can be really helpful to chunk and kind of scaffold things as we go. So you'll notice that some of the sections that are allotted to these different weeks that you will submit are directly related to the work that you're doing in those weeks as you are kind of refining and coming to this. For this project, what is your theory of improvement, right? And maybe that's a really helpful perspective to take, that beyond your EDD, beyond completing this program, you're going to probably continue some of this work. Your theory of improvement is going to continue to evolve. This is not going to be your first rodeo. You're going to keep doing these things, hopefully. You're learning these skills of being an influential leader and influencing change for your organization or for your environment with this kind of running thread of attention to ethics, equity, and social justice. So in this overview, I'm just going to hit through a few things, talk about some resources that you have as part of this assignment. I'm not going to go over them in depth, but I'll give you some key highlights. So weeks 2 and 3, you're going to write some specific sections of your chapter for, it says feedback, should say feedback, but I'm not going to re-record this video for that. You're going to write specific sections for your chapter, and those are outlined in weeks 2 and 3. So in the assignment, when it says, hey, weeks 2 and 3, write these sections, only write those sections, please. Don't go beyond and try to do the whole thing at once. We're going to chunk it up, and I want you to really focus on those sections and write your first draft of them, and then edit and revise them. So what you are submitting is probably your 3rd or 4th draft of them. And I'm for real, really try to polish off your writing. You've had lots of opportunities to submit writing and get some feedback. And I want you to engage in editing and revising along the way, self-editing and revising. Now you'll get feedback from me when you submit those sections to chapter 2-3. And I'll say here, you can submit, or me or your instructor, you will submit the entire document. So there are going to be sections that are blank. Totally cool. Me, the instructor, we're gonna fine tune and zoom into just those specific sections. So you do not have to cut up these sections into other documents. You're just going to keep submitting the same file that you're going to keep working on. Okay. So there will be sections that are left empty and still have maybe notes or an outline. Awesome. Totally cool. You will get some feedback from me, or some feedback. And when you get that feedback, when you submit week 6, you will be editing and revising those previous sections. So the sections that you submitted in 2-3, you'll get feedback and you'll edit and revise those sections. So you'll kind of polish them, you'll refine them, and those will get pretty solid, pretty tight. And then you'll write additional sections. So now it's okay, here's the rest of the chapter. It's kind of split half and half. So then write these last parts. You'll submit those sections for feedback. You'll get feedback after week 6, and then in week 8 is when you submit the final submission of your chapter 3. So all sections are complete. You will have to write some new sections in week 8. I usually coach people, don't write your introduction section until you're done. So in week 8, you'll go all the way back up to the top of the document and write your introduction paragraph. And I think I also have in there to take a look at your references. And so you might be writing some of those things, but other than that, you're editing and revising the feedback from week 6, and or if you had additional feedback from your editing and revising of week 2, 3, you'll submit a complete and final chapter for feedback and approval. So that's kind of how we'll chunk chapter 3. You can kind of think, maybe not 50-50 of writing 2, 3, and 6. Week 6 is a little bit of the heavier writing, but you need time to finalize all of those ideas before you write them up. And so that's why it's like a little bit bigger, is because those are just bigger ideas. Some of the resources that you will have your IRB proposal form, the form that you're actually submitting for review. So a lot of those ideas are probably going to be translated, and you might even find that there are little sections or even a table in there or a figure that you can copy and paste. So your writing in your IRB proposal form is not, it's not just worthless. You're not just going to delete it. Your IRB proposal form is a little bit more truncated than your chapter 3. So usually when we talk to the IRB, we're a little just a bit more straightforward and direct. Think like bullet points a little bit, or, we're condensing really big ideas that we might spend 4 paragraphs talking about into 1 paragraph. In chapter 3, we usually expand. We have a lot more maybe references or citations. We have a little bit more of a rationale. We're talking to a different audience. Our IRB proposal form, we are talking to IRB, the Institutional Review Board, and they are interested in, is our research ethical, and do these steps and procedures make sense? Is there a clear rationale for them? And are these human subjects, are these participants going to be protected? That's our audience. But when we're writing chapter 3, when we're writing our dissertation, there's a whole different audience. You should have a different tone. You have a different tone of voice. You're talking to your stakeholders. You're talking to your organization. You're talking to your doctoral committee. You're talking to your professor. You're talking to the community at large. So there's a much bigger audience, and we usually take a different tone. And then you have 2 resources that I've created for you: a chapter 3 theory of improvement template and a guidebook. So these are going to be your 2 main resources for writing your chapter 3. You'll use all of the other textbook resources, your Perry and colleagues book, your Hannon Crawford, the primer book, even your Creswell and Gutterman, your educational research book too, to help you. So a few quick things about your guidebook. Your guidebook is, I hope it's self-explanatory. It's called a guidebook. My vision for you is that you have your chapter 3 template up and your guidebook up, and you're using the guidebook to coach you. It's like a little coach on your shoulder, because this is an asynchronous program, coaching you how to write that section in your template. So the guidebook, you're not editing. It's just like your resource. Your template is what you're working in and what you're editing. Please, hopefully this is self-explanatory. Read each section carefully. There are a lot of helpful tips in this document. This is, raise your hand if you have ever written a dissertation before. This is your first time doing this. And it's also because in an EDD program, your goal often is not to, we have not been coaching you to write research articles or to write research publications. We've been giving you some skills that will translate to how to do that, but we're really hoping that you're more attending to actually making change in your local context and in your environment. You're most interested in naming, framing, and solving local problems of practice. Your main goal is not, how can I write in this academic jargon to get published in a journal, right? So, but the dissertation is something that is the thing that we are is this really big product and kind of takeaway from working with this program. And a dissertation in practice is one that is still also, we want it to be used in practice. And so that takes this careful translation of, when we have these different sections in the dissertation, they all serve a different purpose. What goes in this section? And I don't imagine you know what goes in that section because you've never written a dissertation before. So the guidebook is here to help you do that. Complete the sections as outlined in your assignment instructions. So that's just that idea of okay, if for weeks 2 and 3, it says these are the sections that are due, Just work on those sections. For week 6, these are the sections that are due. Work on those sections. So follow that accordingly. You are not writing chapter 3 all at once. Okay. We're writing and submitting chunks at a time. Keep this document next to you as you work with your chapter 3 template. This says IRB proposal form. Oh, that's a big typo. That should be chapter 3, chapter 3 template. So just imagine it says chapter 3 template. Recording these videos in the same day. You want to complete all items as outlined in the template. So all of those sections at the end will be completed. Like again, we're going to chunk them and work them out. Use the embedded paragraph outlines and figures and tables. So there's oftentimes in the guidebook, I'll coach you to have a certain figures, and I'll put like see template, and in that template there is probably already a template for that figure, a template for that table for you to use. Formatting tables in APA 7th style, using APA 7th style guidelines. They are very specific about how they want tables to be. So the tables that you see in your template, I have already formatted them for you for APA 7th style. So don't adjust. Do not touch the formatting of the table itself. Like don't change the colors, don't change the bolds. It's already formatted for you, and those can be tricky. You will need to adjust some final formatting. There's some certain text and coaching around those figures or templates that's in blue text that I colored blue so it aesthetically kind of stands out to you as like, oh, this is writing that's associated with the figure or the table that I have right here, and that's that writing, and the other text that's in black is like the body of your work, content of your work. You will need to change that blue text back to black text. APA does not like different colored text, so that's just kind of just to bring your attention to that. And there's instructions there. And then delete the embedded comment instructions for your final submission. I have some embedded comments, suggestions in there for coaching to help bring your attention to things. And it even says, please delete this before final submission. So make sure you delete all embedded comments. Update your, I spelled references incorrectly too. Update your references as you go. So that can be really helpful. Or another tip is you can just do that at the very end, because sometimes if you update your references as you go, depending on if you're using any softwares or not, it might get wonky if you end up deleting some references, and then you don't want in your reference page references that you're not actually citing. And so you can also save your references toward the end. And sometimes it's just one step I do is I'm like, okay, I'm going to set a 30-minute timer, and I'm going to go through and figure out, okay, what are my final citations, and then alphabetize them and make the reference page. And I just do one task at a time. So that can be another tip. All right. So again, this should say chapter 3, chapter 3 template. That's it. Other than that, I'm going to say good luck. And I'll also probably conclude with like, writing is a very vulnerable experience. It can be a very challenging experience, and dissertation writing is very different than like assignment writing. It's very different. It has a very different feel than I'm going to write this discussion post and post it, and then I'm probably not going to look at it ever again. Like you are going to come back to this writing time and time again. The feedback that you get from me or your instructor is never personal feedback. We're here as a coach. We're here to help you. And so, take that feedback as like, it was probably going to feel really direct. And that's okay. The instructor or me, I'm just trying to be clear in that feedback. And so just take it as like, oh, they're here to help me, and they're giving me all the steps I need to make these adjustments. Great. They're not super disappointed in me. This isn't a personal thing. They don't think I'm a failure. Like none of that. We're just giving you some feedback along the way. So use the resources provided for you, please, please, please. And other than that, good luck. If you have questions, and as you continue work on this, you'll also talk about this in your chair check-ins. And so you're welcome to bring some of those ideas, curiosities, sticky moments with you to your chair check-ins to talk there. Okay? All right. Good luck, everyone.